Welcome to Delivering Miracles, a podcast to teach women like you tips and strategies on how you can have a safer pregnancy so you can bring home a healthy baby. I'm your host and your high-risk pregnancy expert, Parijat Deshpande. I can't wait to chat with you. When I first made it into the NICU, which stands for Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, which is where my son went after he was born at 24 weeks and 5 days, it was about 2.5 to 3 hours after he was born. It took me a long time to get to a place where I could actually sit in a wheelchair and be wheeled over. I didn't have a C-section. I had a vaginal delivery, but I had been lying in Trendelenburg, which is feet above my head, for 15 days. And I had moved in 15 days. So I'd lost a lot of muscle mass. I had lost a lot of strength in my body, and going from being upside down to right side up took a long time actually to do it without passing out. So when I was on bed rest, my husband had gone to take a look at the NICU. He couldn't see a whole lot. I mean, obviously they're not going to take you by all the bedside. You know, they have to be careful about what they show you. But he did get a chance to see it a little bit, but I hadn't seen the inside of a NICU. I didn't know what to expect. And I remember being wheeled into the NICU through 2 sets of double doors. You know, we had to wash our hands all the way up to our elbows. We had to be really careful about being sanitized, really, to get into the unit, because any kind of germs can be lethal to babies like my son, who were born so early and were so sick. And I remember going in there, and the first probably 2 or 3 days, it was like I had blinders on. I was in shock. I was experiencing all kinds of symptoms of trauma from having delivered so early, from knowing that my son was born so early. And then just kind of being in this environment of the NICU that's so overstimulating. I can't imagine what it's like for these babies, because as an adult, it's loud and it's bright and there's a lot going on, and you're scared on top of all of that, right? You're scared that your baby's in there. And so I clearly remember feeling like I had this tunnel vision. I couldn't even take in the entire unit. I just knew the path from the double doors to my son's bed, and that's all I saw. And it wasn't until about day 4 or 5 when I'd, done that a couple of times. I'd gone home, been discharged from the hospital, gone home, settled in, had a real shower, all of that. And then I came back to the unit and I thought, oh, this unit is a lot bigger than I'd originally noticed. And I slowly started taking in the entire unit, noticing where the nurse's station was, noticing how many beds there were in the unit. In our particular NICU, they had 3 different bays. The middle bay was the one with the new admits or the really sick babies, which was my son. And then the 2 side bays, I think one was like one step down. So like, okay, you're doing better. And then the one closer to the door is like, all right, you're almost on your way out, kind of. Noticing where the neonatologist's office was, noticing that there were these huge, beautiful windows in the NICU that actually allowed in so much wonderful sunlight during the day. And I could see sunshine. I could see the clouds. I could see when it was raining. And it really helped make it feel like I was breathing in fresh air, even though I was stuck inside the hospital. But all of that to say, the transition into the NICU, even if you know you're going to end up there, I knew it, right? There was 0 chance I was going to deliver at term. By the time I'd landed in the hospital, there was 0 chance that I was going to make it to term. We were obviously very hopeful that I would stay pregnant as long as possible. I think at least I had my eyes set on 28 weeks since I had landed in the hospital at 22. Didn't quite make it there, but that's okay. Did the best that I could, right? So I knew I would end up there. And even then, having a baby in the NICU is terrifying. It's overwhelming. It's scary. It's just so much. It's so much. And then on top of that, if you don't know that your baby's going to end up in the NICU and that happens as a surprise, then you've got all that shock on top of it. And if your baby is really, if your baby's born before 34 weeks, you know you've got time in the NICU. You've got to make it your home. And that's hard to do when you don't know what to expect. So today I want to talk to you about 6 things that I found to be invaluable for me as a parent to have in the NICU. And also I'm going to share with you, for those of you that are listening who have friends who have kids in the NICU, what gifts to give them. Because this is a question that I get very frequently from men and women that, oh, my best friend, my roommate, my brother, whoever, they have a baby in the NICU. What do I give them? What's going to be helpful, right? And I'll be honest, if you have not had a child in the NICU, you do not know what it's like in there. I say that with love, but it is a whole other world. And so I appreciate these questions because once you're on the inside, you kind of know the nuances of what is helpful and what's not. So I figured I'll do a fun little episode today on things that parents need in the NICU and then gifts you can give as a loved one to parents in the NICU. Okay. So if you are a parent in the NICU, if you got a baby in the NICU, the number one thing that you should get, number one, before anything else, is the book called Preemies. A book called Preemies. The second edition is out. It's available on Amazon. I have it linked in the show notes. It is phenomenal. It's like 600 pages long. And I'll tell you, before you even start reading it, do not read it cover to cover. They've got all kinds of disclaimers all over that book. I'm going to tell you to do not read it cover to cover. It is not worth it. It is not what it's meant to be. It's a book that is meant to be read as things come up for your baby in the NICU. So for example, if you have a particular diagnosis that your doctor has given, like BPD or PDA, or your baby needs a PICC line or something like that, go to that section of the book and read about it. Now, it's not so that you can overwhelm yourself with information. It's so that you can remember what your doctor told you. Most neonatologists in most NICUs are pretty good about giving at least basic information about what needs to be done or what's going on for your baby, right? Most of them are. But because you're so overwhelmed in the NICU, because it's so scary, because you're taking in so much information all the time, and because you're worried about your baby, it's hard to remember what they said. And this book does a phenomenal job of breaking it down so that it's easy to understand, so that you can go back to it over and over when you forget 2 hours after your doctor told you, or in the middle of the night when you're awake and you're like, wait, what was that thing that's happening to my baby tomorrow? What's that procedure called again? What does that mean? The book is fabulous. It's written by 2 preemie parents and a neonatologist. So it's parents who've been right there and a doctor who works right alongside these parents and these babies. And it's written in a way that's super easy to understand. So you don't need to know medical language. You don't need to know the lingo. You don't have to have any kind of background in science or anything like that. And I found it to be so empowering, because then I felt like I was able to understand what the doctors were saying to me. And so in the short time that I had with them, I wasn't asking them questions like, wait, what does that mean again? What's BPD? What's ROP? What's that again? I knew, so that I could spend my time with them asking about how that particular acronym affects my particular child. It's a phenomenal book. And actually, after my son left the NICU, the authors of that book actually published an app, a phone app. I believe it's available on iPhone and Android now. And that app you can get it through Graham's Foundation. It's called My Preemie app. And it's great. I don't remember. I didn't have it, obviously, because it wasn't available when my son was in the NICU, but I don't know how much it is. I think it's a few dollars. And it helps you track your baby's development and growth in the NICU so you can keep track of it. You can be on top of it. You can see how well they're doing. You can follow their feeds and just their cares and all of that. And you can have that information if you'd like. But regardless of the app, get the book. It's phenomenal. If there's only one thing you get from this entire episode, let it be that. That book is awesome. And I have it linked in the show notes so you can grab it directly from there. If you are a friend of a parent in the NICU, get them the book. It's so amazing. I think it's only $20 on Amazon. And I think the price fluctuates a little bit depending on, whether they're doing promotions and things. but it's so, so, so worth it. It is so worth it. I love that book so much. So that's the one that you should absolutely get. There's a ton of other preemie books that are out there, but I thought this one did the best job of being really easy to understand, really relatable, and just really targeted in the type of information that you need at the time that you need it. It's perfectly written for the parent in the NICU, where you just don't have the capacity to take in a lot of information, but you just need to know the basics to understand what's happening with your child. So super, super awesome. Really, really highly recommend it. Okay. So that's number one, the book Preemies, linked below in the show notes. Number two is kind of related to this, is have a notebook and a pen available at the bedside. And the reason for that is, honestly, I can say this personally, and I can also quote now tons of research that shows that parents who are most involved in their baby's care in the NICU, those babies do better. They eat better, they grow faster, and they're out of the NICU sooner. It's just how it is. And I think part of that is because when you're involved, there's less medical mistakes that can happen because now there's an extra set of eyes on what's going on with your baby. And I think also because your baby thrives on you being there. Your baby needs you and the love that you provide. We tend to kind of push that aside going, oh, well, what's that? You know, my baby right now needs medication and medicine to help him or her survive. Yes, absolutely. But that's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough. The love that you bring to that relationship and to that unit and to that bedside, to that little baby is so critical. So be involved. And I know it's scary. But do it anyway. And so a great thing to do is to grab a notebook and a pen and leave it bedside. That way, when your doctor's talking, take notes. Or if you like to pay attention while somebody's talking to you, you can't concentrate on doing both, take notes after you're done talking because you're going to forget. Right? You're going to forget what your doctor's telling you. The stress, the exhaustion, the shock, the trauma, it impacts your memory. You think you're going to remember and you don't. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So write it all down. Okay. One of my favorite notebooks. I like to have nice notebooks that just make me feel happy because it's like some tiny little thing that I can do for myself to bring some sunshine into my day. So my favorite notebooks are from May Designs. I'll link those in the show notes as well. They're cute, they're little, they're easy to transport. They're just lovely. So if you wanted a cute one, that's a great one to do. I will add here though, I can't leave this one without telling a little story here. So I'm a huge note taker. I've always been. I'm the kind of person that I retain information if I write it down. So I write while somebody's talking to me. I write during lectures in class and I write during doctor's appointments, all that. That's just how I remember. And a few months after my son was born, he was obviously followed by a bunch of different specialists, one of which is a pulmonologist, which is a doctor for the lungs. And there was one we were seeing him for pretty frequently at that time, early on after my son's discharge from the NICU. And I had this binder of all my notes from all of his specialists. And I would take it to all my appointments, no matter what specialist we were going to. And this pulmonologist, he saw that notebook or the binder that I had and all the notes that I was taking. And he's like, you should relax. Like you should just be a parent and relax and don't be so worried about all this stuff. Needless to say, that was the last time I saw that pulmonologist because being a parent means understanding what's happening to your baby's medical care. Being a parent means having records so that when I fire you, I will have records to take to somebody else. Right? Or as they get older, we have a history of their medical records. Being a parent means being on top of what's happening to your child's health so that you know your child's getting the best care possible. It would be awesome if we could just walk away and say and trust that our medical care is being taken care of. It'd be easier for sure. But one, that's not the reality. Doctors are humans too. Nurses are humans too. Mistakes happen. And number two, it's our job as parents to know the health of our child so we can teach our children how to take care of themselves. If we don't know what's going on with them, how are they ever going to learn what's going on with them? Right? So don't let anyone make you feel like taking notes, asking questions, and having these records is inappropriate or wrong, or don't let them make you feel like you're doing something crazy or that you're not being a parent or whatever it is that they're doing, don't let anyone make you feel that way. It is your right and it's your job to be involved. And if you have a doctor or a nurse that tells you, hey, you're going a little too far, like chill out, walk away, find another doctor. That's exactly what we did. And we actually have an absolutely incredible pulmonologist right now who's so amazing. We're so happy with him. But I had to throw that in there because there are some doctors that just don't like it. And they don't, I don't imagine that would happen too much in the NICU, but in case it does, because you never know, right? That is their stuff. That's not on you. You keep taking notes. You keep being involved. You keep asking questions. You do what you need to be involved, because the more involved you are, the better the baby does. Woo! Good rant for today. I'll never forget that moment. I was so livid. I was so livid. Like, really? You're okay, wow. Well, nice knowing you. You're never going to see my child again. Okay, so number 1, we've got the preemies book linked in the show notes below. Number 2, have a notebook and pen by the bedside so you can take notes and keep a record of what's going on with your baby. Number 3 is to have nutritious and easy to grab snacks and a huge water bottle. You've probably got the huge water bottle under control and you've probably got that down. Snacks are not so easy. They weren't for me, for sure. Early on in my son's NICU stay, I would forget to eat because I wasn't hungry. Number 1, I wasn't hungry. And number 2, I was so worried about leaving his bedside. What if something happened? What if somebody didn't catch something? Which is, my own thing. I didn't trust our NICU. They're wonderful people. I'm friends with many of our nurses and our neonatologists, but at the time I didn't know them. And we had been through such a journey to get pregnant and then to stay pregnant that I was like, you don't know what you don't know what we've been through. You don't understand. So I was scared. I was scared to leave and I wasn't hungry. So I wasn't getting my body's cues to eat. And I was super worried about my child. I was scared about what could happen. I mean, being a 24-weeker and being as sick as he was when he was born, we were really taking it hour by hour for many weeks. So I didn't do a great job. And I'll tell you, it was friends of mine who had been in the NICU, who had either they themselves had been in the NICU or they had close friends who had been in the NICU who did such a fabulous job of putting together gift baskets for me with easy to grab snacks. I didn't have time to have a full meal, nor was I interested. Was that a problem? We could debate about that all we want, right? Some would say yes, some would say no. The reality is when you're in the NICU, every parent copes with that differently. Some parents want to be by the bedside constantly. Some parents, create a schedule and are really good about taking time away. There's no better or worse as long as it's not hurting your health and it's not hurting your baby's health. Every parent's going to do it differently and there's no right or wrong way to do it, right? But I find that I definitely for myself, and I find for a lot of NICU parents, it's really hard to remember to eat. And part of the reason is because you can't eat at the bedside, right? Like you can drink your water by bedside. You can be holding your baby and having water. You can be pumping. You can have water. That's fine. But eating, you have to leave the unit, which makes sense. You don't want to have food all over the intensive care unit and all over the baby, just fine. But it requires a conscious effort to actually go do it. And let's be real. If you don't have time for a full meal. And again, we can debate this all day long about what's best or what's not. The reality is if your reality does not allow you to have a full meal every single day or whatever that is, the best thing you can do is to create nutritious snacks that you can grab on the go and eat them. Because it's really easy to jump in and have some like terrible food at the cafeteria or from the vending machine. It's really easy because it's right there. But if you create your own snack bags, trail mix, things that I actually used to love at the time were walnuts with dried cranberries and dark chocolate. They'd give me the boost that I needed. They were healthy and I could just pack little snack bags and just have that ready for the week and just throw it in my bag before I head over to the NICU in the morning. I could do something like that. Fruits are great. Nut butters or nut-free butters. We're a nut-free house here, so we do sunflower seed butter with some pretzels or some fruit. Those are great. Trader Joe's actually has some really awesome, easy-to-grab snacks. And I imagine Whole Foods does too. And stores like that, you can just little snack packs of maybe dried fruit, nuts, and granola bars, things like that would be really easy. Just make sure that you are getting as much nutrition as possible packed into whatever bite you take. Because I know how hard it is. People will be telling you all the time, hey, take care of yourself. Make sure you eat, sit down, have a full meal. And the reality is when you've got a baby in the NICU, that's not always possible. Between juggling your baby's cares and your pumping schedule, if you're doing that, and just life, you don't have a lot of time. I think that's one of the biggest things that surprised me about being in the NICU is how busy it is. You'd think that by having a baby in a hospital that, okay, somebody else is taking care of it, so there's not a lot going on. So you have some time to heal and recover, but you really don't, because at the beginning, at least in our case, because he was so sick, we were constantly having appointments and discussions with the doctors about care and types of interventions we wanted to do and types of medications to give and all this stuff. And then as he started to get bigger and stronger and healthier, then I needed to be there more to actually start doing more of the care. So it was a very, very busy time. So all that to say, the reality is sometimes you don't have time. And I would, instead of beating yourself up for not eating full, perfect meals, I would rather you just have the most nutritious bites, even if it's 3 bites. That's just what I say. And that was my experience. That's what a lot of the NICU moms that I talk to experience. So if that's where you are, you're not alone. Do the best that you can. And I'm going to link also in the show notes a really great episode that we did recently with Lily Nichols on postpartum nutrition. And we talked a little bit about having a baby in the NICU and how do you eat when you're so busy with a baby in the hospital. So that will be linked below as well. Okay, so number 1, we have the preemies book. Number 2, notebook and pen at the bedside. Number 3, nutritious, easy to grab snacks and a huge water bottle just with you constantly. Like you keep your wallet with you and you keep your keys with you, keep that with you. Number 4 is to get a disposable camera. Okay. Now I realize that this might be a little bit outdated advice for some NICUs, because I know there are some NICUs that now have actual video cameras, like baby cams on the isolettes so that you can see what your baby's doing even if you're at home, which is so awesome. And I totally wish our NICU had done that. I don't know if they even do. I don't know if they do now still. I should ask. I'm not sure. But I wish they'd done that. And I know there are a ton of hospitals that do already do that. But even then, you're not staring at that video constantly. And there are going to be milestones that happen when you're not there, either when you're not looking or you're not physically there. And there's some fun moments too that you don't want to miss. So things like the first bath or the first time they take the cannula off your baby's face and you can see it without any kind of tubing or wiring or anything on face. Or the first time they open their eyes, that could happen in the middle of the night when you're not there. Things like that happen throughout the day, 24/7. And there's a whole emotional piece to this that we could do an entire episode about in terms of missing these milestones, right? But from a practical standpoint, if you have a disposable camera there and you talk to the nursing staff and say, hey, I'm giving you permission to please take pictures of my child, you can actually get that developed and then see some of these moments that you might have missed because you were at home sleeping or pumping or taking care of your other children, or you were talking to the doctor or wherever else you were. Then you don't miss them. You've got records of them. And actually, I'll tell you, some of the nurses are really great photographers. We have some of the best pictures from the NICU from this disposable camera that I picked up from CVS because they get it. They know the essence of the baby. They have NICU nurses are just such angels. They really understand the spirit of that baby and they really understand this child and they know what the parent experience is like, at least from seeing so many parents go through it, if not having been NICU parents themselves. So we have some amazing pictures from the NICU during times that we weren't there because our nurses agreed to take those photos. So consider that. And I say a disposable camera only because like a digital camera, although I mean now like with everybody having cell phones with phone, digital cameras are a little less pricey, I guess, a little less prized, but still, disposable camera is just so easy and it's so cheap and you don't have to worry about anybody stealing it or anything like that. So yeah, Camera is a great thing to put at the bedside. Let them know you want them to take pictures when they do something cute in the middle of the night or when they, start cooing or something. We have a great picture of my son when he started cooing for the first time. And he used to make such a cute little face. He's got these cheeks and this tiny little mouth that went, ooh. And it's almost like you can hear the sound from the picture that they took because he would do it all the time. And I'm so glad that they did. It was one day towards like the last third of his NICU stay. One of his overnight nurses took that picture. It was amazing. So camera would be great to have. So that's number 4. Number 1 is the preemies book. Number 2 is a notebook and pen. Number 3 is nutritious, easy to go, easy to grab, easy to take snacks with your huge water bottle. Number 4 is a camera. Disposable camera at the bedside. Number 5 is pumping supplies. If you are pumping in the NICU, if you're trying to pump or if you are pumping, there are 2 things that I am forever grateful for a friend of mine telling me about. 1 is a pumping bra and 2 is nipple cream. And I'm linking my 2 favorite brands in the show notes below so you can check them out. Now, here's the thing. Some lactation consultants, especially at the beginning of your pumping journey, are going to say, don't use a pumping bra because you need to use your hand to massage your breast to really get the milk flowing. The reality also is that when you're pumping 8 times a day, every 3 hours, every single day, all the time, you are exhausted. And at 2:00 in the morning, when you just want to sleep, that's not easy to do. It's not easy. And sometimes you just need some things to make your life a little bit easier. And I think it's worth it. And I'll tell you honestly, it was possible to massage my breasts even through the pumping bra if I really needed it. So where there's a will, there's a way. It'll work. But this was such a lifesaver. And it especially came in handy when I wanted to pump while holding my son in the NICU when he got strong enough for me to be able to do that. Because then that also helped my milk supply because I was holding him. He was right there and I didn't have to worry about holding the flanges and everything while I was pumping. So I have my 2 favorite brands linked below. Totally worth it. Do it. And if you get a pumping bra, get 2 so that you have one in rotation all the time when the other one is in the wash. That was a life lesson I learned the hard way. But those are so worth it. And I highly, highly recommend it. So check out the link below. Okay. And number 6 is also one of my favorites, is to have 2 little like handkerchief type things. You could do even pillowcases if you don't have handkerchiefs at home, or maybe washcloths or something like that. Get 2 of them. And you put one in the isolate. Wash it really well. Wash it in a detergent that your NICU approves. Our NICU approved all free and clear because it had no fragrances, like no extra anything. So it was okay for the baby. Ask your NICU what they recommend to wash it in. And then take one and leave it in the baby's isolate right next to the baby. And the other one, put it on your chest and sleep with it, or put it in your armpit and sleep with it. The next day, when you go to the unit, switch them out. And that way, your baby will have the scent of you, and you will have your baby's scent with you to smell and to hold on to while you're pumping at home. It is like magic. If there's anything magical about the NICU, this is one of those things. It is such a beautiful way of staying connected with each other in ways that are so important to both of you for your healing, for your growth, for, baby to be able to thrive, for you to be able to produce milk if you are doing that. And even if it's not for milk production, right? It is good for milk production, but it's also really good for emotional bonding. Even if you're not pumping, or if you choose not to, or if you can't, it's incredible. You sleep with it, so baby's right there. It's the next best thing to actually having baby there with you. So totally recommend it. And this is another thing, just have a few in rotation. So every couple days, just wash them and repeat, and just keep swapping this out between you and the baby. And it's just a wonderful experience, and also really good for both of you health-wise as well. Okay. Top 6 things. These are the top 6. I have so many. I was starting to make this list and it turned out so long. I was like, okay, let me just start with 6. And then if you all want more, we can always talk about more. But number 1 is the preemies book, linked below. You can grab it on Amazon. Number 2, notebook and pen by the bedside to stay involved in your baby's care. Number 3 is high nutrient dense, easy to eat and take snacks, plus a huge water bottle. Number 4 is a disposable camera at the bedside for your nurses to take pictures. Number 5 is a pumping bra. No, 2 pumping bras and nipple cream that I really appreciated. I exclusively pumped for a very long time. And these were the 2 things that made that process less annoying and painful. Exclusive pumping is no joke. So these were the 2 of my favorite products for that. And number 6 is 2 small handkerchiefs in rotation. 1 you sleep with, 1 baby sleeps with, and then you switch. So you have each other's scents and smells with you. So those are the things that I loved when I was in the NICU. I'll also tell you now, if you're listening and you maybe aren't likely to deliver preterm or you're not pregnant yet, but you know somebody who has a baby in the NICU, here are some of my favorite gifts that I received or that I have heard have been really helpful. Gas gift cards. We were very lucky that our NICU was very close. The hospital is very close to us. That is not the case for a lot of people. Depending on how sick the baby is, depending on how much care and what kind of treatment the baby needs, sometimes babies need to be sent to a different NICU than what's local to parents. And that means there's a lot of traveling. And that means they fill up their car a lot. And so any kind of help with gas and with reducing that type of cost is super, super helpful. Similarly, vouchers for parking. This one really bugs me. I can't believe that they would make parents of patients in the hospital actually pay for parking. But when my son was transferred to another hospital partway through his stay because of an eye condition that he had developed that couldn't be managed at the hospital where he was born, that's what they did. And I think we were able to get passes for like 30 days or 28 days or something at a time. But if we didn't apply for it, we would have had to pay for parking. And that gets massively expensive, especially if you're visiting your child every single day. So if you know that their hospital charges for parking, that would be very helpful, is to go to the hospital itself, purchase some of these vouchers and give it to your friends or your loved ones, whoever has the baby in the NICU. That would be such a tremendous help. We also received restaurant gift cards or food delivery gift cards. You know, there's Uber Eats, there's DoorDash, there's Postmates, there's all kinds of things all over the place. That was really helpful too, because especially as he was getting bigger and I was at the hospital more and more, and being there, I was really, really busy. There wasn't time to cook. And obviously during my pregnancy, I hadn't filled up a freezer full of food, right? I was only 24 weeks along. And before that, I was on bed rest the entire time. So for us, we didn't have food. So that was really helpful to just be able to to know that, hey, if it gets to be a long day, if something happens, we don't feel like cooking or we don't have food, we could just order in and it's just taken care of. That was so, so helpful. And I think similarly, things like Starbucks gift cards, Pete's coffee gift cards, Phil's coffee, whatever it is, if you know that the parents drink coffee because it's exhausting and they might need the caffeine. We don't drink coffee or tea, but it was still helpful to know that we had that there. So if we needed to pick up a quick snack, we could just go through a Starbucks drive-through and we knew it was taken care of. And there was a feeling of just, gratitude of knowing that somebody had thought about that, which was lovely. And then on the food train, and thinking along the same lines of food, it's not something you buy, but giving them food to stock their freezer, especially around the time when baby's coming home. The thing in the NICU is they don't give you a lot of notice about when baby's coming home. They can tell you a date and then that could change. And they usually don't tell you that date very early. It's just taken day by day by day and watching the baby and seeing how they're doing. So if you know it's around that time, within a few weeks, you could just start bringing food and say, hey, you can either eat this now or leave it in the freezer. It's going to stay good for 6 months, and just pull it out once baby's home. Because probably a lot of these women and couples have not had a chance to fill and stock their freezer before baby came and has been in the NICU for a little while. Okay. And then, of course, giving them food now for them to enjoy and eat now. I think one of my favorite moments of when my son was in the NICU was really early on. A couple of our friends came by and they just said, you know what? We get it. You're busy. You have to be extremely careful about being around sick people. So we're not even going to come in. we're just going to leave the food on the doorstep and I'll text you when it's there and just open the door and take it. I still get tears in my eyes thinking about that moment of how kind and how understanding and how much love there was in that action. And it was some recipe. I mean, it tasted incredible. And apparently it was something that like is really easy for them to make. And it was such a not a big deal to them, but it was really big deal to us to know that they were so understanding of our situation and wanted to help, and they helped in the best way that they could. And we really, really appreciated it. So know that even if you can't connect with your friends or your loved ones who are in the NICU, just leaving it on their doorstep does wonders. Leave it in in a cooler if you know they're not going to be home for a little while, something like that. I mean, it goes so far. This was 5 years ago. And I still remember that moment. I still have tears because I'm so grateful to these friends who were so thoughtful to do that for us. A few other ideas for gifts for loved ones who have a baby in the NICU. Blankets. Blankets are great. We got a lot of blankets, and I was really appreciative of that because we got to use them once he was home. And when he was home, he wasn't allowed to meet other people very much. But it was a nice connection of, oh, this is from this family member or this friend that you're going to see when you're a little bit older. And it just felt like we were a lot closer. And that love really came through. So we love that. We had a lot of friends crochet, knit, or sew blankets or hats or booties or something like that. Those are also really lovely. You don't have to buy the gifts. Handmade gifts are so nice. Also, they're very kind. Don't be surprised if they don't use them in the NICU, but they're great for once the baby comes home. I really appreciated those too. And then along the lines of clothes are hit or miss because there are some babies that can't wear clothes for a little while. Like my son, he was so sick and he was so preterm that he wasn't allowed to wear clothes until he was about 2.5 months old. And had I received clothes before that, I think I would have felt really sad because it would have reminded me that, oh yeah, right, he's born and I can't put clothes on him because he's so sick. That said, closer to when he was going to come home, I appreciated clothes because there was something that I could look forward to putting him in once he came home. So they're hit or miss. I think it really depends. If the baby's closer to term, maybe moderately preterm, like a 32, 34 weeker or something, they're probably going to be in clothes pretty quickly. That might be okay. Or you could just plan on giving clothes for once baby's home and let the NICU time just kind of be whatever parents decide or know is needed for it. Other things that were helpful, Amazon or Target gift cards. We didn't have time to prepare for him to come home. So we basically had just the essentials. We had a bassinet and we had some clothes and we had diapers, and that was kind of it. And these gift cards helped us to buy more things like bottles and more clothes, stuffed animals, books, things like that. That was really helpful. And then I think probably more than anything else, the most invaluable gift was the gift of time. Having friends and family spend their time with us or for us was so, so invaluable. Doing dishes for us, doing our laundry, checking our mail, doing groceries for us, calling us up on the way to the store going, hey, I'm headed over to Safeway. Do you need anything? And knowing that they were okay with just dropping it off at the doorstep if they couldn't come in, especially if they were sick, because it was too dangerous. We just couldn't risk it. So things like that. And then coming over and just sitting with us and talking to us or just being around was so tremendously helpful. So tremendously helpful. So there you have it. There you have it. A whole bunch of things that if you are a preemie parent, you can grab for yourself. And then a whole bunch of ideas if you know preemie parents in the NICU of gifts that you can give them. It's an awful place to be. It's a place that you're so grateful that we have because it's helping your child grow and thrive. But it's not a place any parent wishes to be. And while none of these things are actually going to fix the situation, they're all essential in helping you as the parent do what you need to help your child come home as quickly as possible. I used to hear this quote a lot, and I used to read it a lot when I was reading about preemies a few years back. And I used to read it in relation to a message to give to your preemie, but I think this quote is actually so applicable to preemie parents too, which is, always remember you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. And I love that. It's such a beautiful reminder as a parent in the NICU that you can do this. Allow yourself to accept help, ask for help, and try to make this process as easy for yourself as possible because you can and you deserve it. Thank you so much for joining me here today. We talked about so many different ideas, and I hope that it was helpful. And if you liked today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you could head over to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review so more women who are preparing for a preemie or who are in the NICU already or who are parenting a preemie can receive the inspiration and the tips and the motivation that we talk about on Delivering Miracles so they'll know how to get through the ups and downs of prematurity. And if you are in the NICU right now, or you have friends or relatives who have a baby in the NICU and you want to know how to cope or how you can get through it or how you can support them, I would love for you to join my Bringing Baby Home program. It's super short, super simple, and it's meant for NICU parents or loved ones of NICU parents who have questions but have no time for appointments or sessions. So email us at barijatdeshpande.com/contact for more information and to register, or click on the link in the show notes and it'll take you directly there so you can learn a little bit more about bringing baby home. Also, I would love to stay in touch. So follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Barijat Desh. That's PARIJATDESH. There's that really common phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. And for us NICU parents, it takes a village to bring a child home. Know that if you're in the NICU, you're not alone. There's a whole community of us around you cheering you on and sending you love and sending you strength as you fight for your little baby to come home. Take it one day, one step at a time. You can do this.